Good morning. It is kind of weird that I actually do this video on Friday morning before I go to work. I just got done with my meditation, so there's a sense of urge. I want to talk about it. Like, this is my day 3 podcast. I don't want to make it too official, but I just want to be able to roll out some of the ideas I am very inspired to share. So yeah, I normally don't do it on a weekday morning because I have work to do. But anyway, so what got me thinking earlier? Well, when I was doing meditation, it just kind of pop up like, wow, things trying to uh, just come through really quickly in my meditation. So authenticity, right? Remember I talk about self-love, self-worthiness, right? Who we are. We're not what we think who we are, right? There's a reason why we're very confused. We suffer because we are operating based on some of the principles that have been instilled in us, each of us, since the day that we were born. We're very much conditioned to think in a certain way in this world. Therefore, we operate based on those principles and belief systems. So when we're not able to see it clearly, to know who we are and be able to see beyond what we were taught, then we struggle because at the end of the day, our souls know exactly who we are, and when we're doing things out of the ordinary, going against who we truly are, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't sit right. And then we create a conflict, internal conflict, right? So how can we be authentic? How can we be authentic towards ourselves? The cat that just keep on rubbing on me. That's what happened in the morning. Same thing when I do meditation. So how can we be authentic? How can I be authentic and love myself in an authentic way? How can I love others authentically? We have to be authentic in order for us to be able to do things authentically. I mean, can I make it more simpler than that? Kind of redundant for me to say it this way, but it is true. But what does that mean to be authentic? Well, going back to what I talked about in the last 2 videos, you have to really, truly, fully have a full comprehension of who we are. We are not this body. We are not this vessel. This is just a tool. Again, this is a very important thing. I have to point it out. When you own a vehicle, doesn't matter what kind of vehicle that you have, you're using the vehicle to take you from point A to point B. Okay? Just because you own the vehicle doesn't mean that you are the vehicle. It is a very important thing for me to point out again and again and again. Because even including myself, I sometimes have to say it out loud for my monkey brain to be able to hear what I just said. To make a bold statement, a true statement, that I'm not my body. But this body is very useful and important because in order for me to be able to do something in this physical world, I need this body, not walking around formless, right? Not just walking around in spirit. I mean, it's great to be in that spirit because the spirit's combined with this vehicle. I got shit done, right? But do not mistaken that this is who I am or your body is who you are. Do not really confuse that piece. And when we're able to take ourselves, really truly take our authentic self, just take a step back to look at the bigger picture, then you start to gain the clarity. Okay, being authentic, it's really able to see there are different layers of truth as we all continue to do the soul searching. It's not really searching, it's remembering who we are. So we're not learning something that we don't know. We cannot come up with ideas that we don't have within. Even talk about the inventors, engineers, people who come up with some, genius ideas. that most people could not be able to come up with, and they think they're genius because they come up with something that's from nothing or from nowhere, which is not true. We can only conceive in our monkey brain through the things that we already have within. Okay, that ties back to our spirituality. That ties back our creativity. Whether you're a scientist, whether you're an artist, all the creativity, all the creativity and all those creative ideas, they're not something new. So that's another layer of truth. It's not something new coming from nowhere. No, it's coming from within your soul, your spirit. Okay, just because I can come up with a different idea than yours doesn't make me better than you or you're better than me. But we're just uniquely has those resources within, under the hood, that we're able to create. Whether you're trying to make an improvement at work or in your life, it doesn't matter what it is. Or you come up with something that perceived to be brand new, still not really brand new. So in order for us to be able to be authentic, number one, know that there's a difference when we acknowledge that we are not our physical body, that we're not the vessel, we are something more, not really complicated, but definitely there is a layer of a deepening part in us. That's something that we have not be unfold to see the big picture of our capacities, our capabilities, our ability to love. That's one thing. Our ability to be able to empathize. I know that a lot of people would tell me that, well, I'm an empath. I pick up people's energies. I can feel when I walk into a room with a bunch of people, I can pick up on people's vibes and their emotions and what's going on. I'm very sensitive. I run into a lot of people because we tend to run into our soul tribe, and we tend to run into people who are very similar with the similar abilities. Right? Being an empath is one of those things that we all agree that we can easily pick up on people's emotions, especially when it comes to something not so pleasant, because we tend to amplify the unpleasant emotions and feelings. Okay, we tend to tune into something that's unpleasant. That is also a conditioning in our monkey brain, in our mind. Subconsciously, we tend to look for faults. We were trained to do that. We're trained to find mistakes, because the part of us want to improve, to make things better. It's always coming from the lack, coming from faults, coming from problems. We're trained to do problem solving. So we are conditioned to find problems, to find flaws. Okay. So because we focus so much of our energy to wire that way, right? We're programmed to be that way. And so we lost sight on something that's actually quite beautifully exists by itself. Within us, within you, within me, within everything around us, among us. So to be authentic is to be able to embrace the part of us that we can totally capable of being empathetic, not sympathetic. Being empathetic is very, so there's a distinction. So just because I empathize on your situation and your struggles and everything else about you, doesn't mean that I will burn myself alive to keep you warm if you're cold. Okay, so understand that to have a proper and healthy boundaries doesn't mean that you have to set up the wall to block people off, but to know your own availability and your vulnerability and how far you are ready to go to help and be there for somebody. Sometimes when we say we love people, we genuinely care and love people, but then we don't necessarily have the juice, have the stability at that very moment to to support that person the way that person expect us to support them. And then often that is being perceived to be selfish. And inadvertently, we were trained and conditioned to feel guilty for not being there for that individual. So it's a double-edged sword, you know. So you wanted to be there for people, you want to show people that you love and care for your friends, for your loved ones. But then because we're not able to shake that one thing, which is the guilt, like for some reason, it's almost like a BOGO, right? When we talk about buy one, get one half off, buy one, get one free, I love to use the term BOGO. It's because we don't often see that. We tend to want to do our best for others, but we don't see that when we say our best, we cannot accept the fact that we can only do so much at one given time or one given circumstance or situation or a setting. And when we are trying our best to be there for people, to love people, to support people, we are holding on to what others expected of us. So in other words, when I say that I'm going to do my best to be there for you, it should be truly sticking to the words that I just said. I'm doing my best, not what you think my best would be. So if my best is right here, but your expectation of my best is all the way up here, and I mistaken that my best will be your version of my best, then I will always be perceived and felt failure, like that feeling of not good enough, that I'm not loving enough, that I'm not empathetic enough, that I'm just simply a dick, a bitch, a jerk, whatever the labels that I will identify with. So remember I talked about labels in the last two long ass videos, right? Day 1 and day 2. This is going to be a continuum. I'm going to bring this up again and again. Because when we become more aware, you start to notice how frequently. I mean, I kid you not, in a 24-hour shift, okay? Within 24-hour time frame, think about it for a second, how often we label ourselves with something. We identify ourselves with something. Sorry, this is just Rocky snoring. It's morning time, so just my white noise machine. But I hope that this will kind of get you thinking about it. Once you're able to catch yourself, that you're starting to notice that, wow, everything that I do, everything that I said, is still very much conditioned to be referenced to other people's expectations and standards. How often will we say this? I mean, back in school, so take a second to think about when you're at school. Let's just pick a subject matter that you're not really good at. Okay, let's just take that as an example. Think about how you would talk to yourself when you're not able to do as good compared to your peers. And that's not your favorite subject matter. In fact, that's probably your least favorite subject matter. But you just have to do it because it's part of the curriculum. You need to finish that freaking class in order for you to be a graduate. It's part of the deal, right? So we often run into a particular class that we freaking hate. I don't like to use that word, but you see what I'm saying. I'm trying to get you to go back to one point in your life that you're doing something that you freaking don't like at all. But you have to do it because you just have to. And then you didn't do really well. Or in fact, you may actually make a lot of effort in trying to do at least to the best that you can. And you know you're not really good at it. And then at the end of the day, when you look at the result, how you perform in that particular class, you feel like, man, I just really suck at it. Think about how often we have this self-talk to ourselves, especially when it comes to something that we're not too fond of, that we're not too good at. We don't have a huge interest in that subject matter, but we must do. That same goes to your work. The same goes to anything that you do in life. There's always a list of things that you like the most, and then something all the way at the bottom of your list. How conveniently and easily that we will say that to ourselves. Well, I don't really like this shit much, but I have to do it. I have no choice. So now I'm doing it. It's kind of crappy result. I didn't do really well. I didn't perform really well because I'm just not good at. I'm just not good at it, and I'm not good enough. That's one end of the spectrum to demonstrate how easy that we talk shit to ourselves. Because that conclusion is coming from the comparison of ourselves to other people. In other words, my standard, all of a sudden, it's not really my standard. My conclusion is based upon other people's standards or projected standards that we internalize and use it as our own standard without realizing that we have been being just led by holding our nose with the leash, led by others. It's nothing to do with me. Everything that I do, all the things that I said to myself, my whole entire existence, really, I don't exist for other people, but somehow I allow myself to be that way. So is it authentic? No, because I'm not living to the truth of who I am and what I am and embrace everything that I am. And in fact, it's quite the opposite. I am setting the tone to make sure I fail. Because I'm setting myself up to try to meet other people's expectations, whether it's your parents, your family, your colleagues, your employer, your teachers, your peers, your best friend, whatever, right? So being authentic is to kick that shit out of your system. Until then, you are never gonna be authentic. Because you are living and being led by other people's rules, expectations, and projected, feelings. So, if I project my fear over to you, whatever you're doing, I will constantly be a good friend saying like, you know what, you gotta be careful because that's not easy. And a lot of people really struggle with that and couldn't really succeed in pursuing what you're pursuing. I'm just telling you because I care for you, I'm a good friend. What I just did to you is to project my own fears because I don't believe in that shit because I've seen other things and people, other circumstances to help me to make this conclusion of you are not going to make it, which is my self-talk, right? I told myself I'm not going to make it, so I won't even attempt to do what you're doing. Therefore, I project that same fear, that same self-talk, the toxic thought, which is not true, onto you to make sure you know I love you and I care for you. That's why I'm giving you this fear talk that I've been talking to myself to the point where I will stay the fuck away from it. And I want to make sure you stay the fuck away from your own personal pursuit, whether it's for your career or for your relationship or for anything else. You see how toxic it is? You talk about pandemic, everybody talk about COVID. And I'm like, well, that's something that on the outside that we are all being affected. But on the deeper part in us, in each of us, how often you'll hear people to point that out. It's the same thing. When we are thinking and projecting and vomiting onto each other from our own point of fear, like speaking from fears, and then we're just throwing that shit, that viral infection mentally to one another, that is a true pandemic. The toxicity in the way how we think it's really brutal because we were conditioned, we were taught and conditioned to think that way, to feel that way subconsciously. The first round of programming is always coming from that worry. Parents worry about the kids gonna get sick, gonna get this problem, not having this. If you think about it, even you talk about families who are very affluent, well, I want to make sure my child is able to do this and that. And so I want to make sure doing everything else to ensure my child is getting everything that my child needs. So I'm going to provide my child with everything that I have. That is still coming from fear. Fear of my child is not be able to be provided with. Do you see what I'm getting to? I'm talking about people who are even very successful, very affluent. Often we still think from the lack, think from the failure. How can I avoid the failure to prevent tragedies, to prevent failure for the people that we care, that we love, and constantly reinforce that motivation behind it's coming from love. And often we lost sight that motivation is truly stemmed from fears to begin with. We mask with love, and we package that ideology and belief system, and we mass produce and program our subconscious since the day that we are born. I wasn't kidding when I talk about this. This is something that we have to become more aware and pay attention to our true motivation behind each sentence, especially when we talk about the action words. The action words meaning verbs in English sense. Okay? What kind of words that we use and how we talk about things will reflect back to why I say things the way I say it. What was the true reason? Not the masked illusion, right? So how we package what we say, it's just a mask. We have to be able to see beyond what we are truly motivated to say things and how we think and how we feel about what we say. If we don't take the time and give the time to ourselves to be able to dive deeper and look within, to investigate, to understand our reasoning, to understand how we feel, why I would think this way, because of my own fear. When I make so much money, I create my business, it's doing so well. At some point, a lot of people who haven't done and released all the limiting beliefs, because a lot of times you'll hear people, their thriving stories, their success stories, it's always coming from nothing to something. I created my own empire from nothing, coming from a really what we call like poverty, right? And then look at the empire I created, how many millions or billions of dollars. At some point, that individual was starting to hit the ceiling because that person was starting to worry about how long do I get to keep my empire, the success that I create. How can I maintain and continue to scale? Let's just don't even talk about scale. How can I maintain this level of success? How long can I hold on to it? And when will it be the point where I was starting to lose it or cannot keep up with the momentum, right? So this is just one little facet of what I'm trying to say. We talk about career, talk about business. It could be anything else. It could be relationship, right? Coming from a fucked up family, very dysfunctional family, no support, no love. It's very abusive family. And now I create my own family, my loved one, my significant other, my children, whatever. At some point, you're starting to have the self-talk again, which is, how long can I keep this loving family? The people that I love and I care, how long do I get to keep them and keep the same dynamic that I have been longing, that I have created for myself? What is that? Why we would think that way? Because it's the fear talking, the lack talking. So when we're able to see that, you're starting to release and heal from those limiting beliefs, and to be able to recognize that those are just echoes from what we have been programmed on a subconscious level. Once you're able to release those echoes, yeah, subconscious is simply a library that store all your belief systems. But the library can be updated. Constantly can be updated. Okay, you can get new information to put it into your new, subconscious library. It can be updated. I mean, it's already been proven by neuroscientists. Your brain can be very malleable, very, what they call neuroplasticity, very stretchy. You can create numerous infinite, neural pathways, new neural pathways. You can learn new things. You can unlearn stuff. You just have to use appropriate tools to train your mind to be able to continue to stretch, right? The capacity. There's so much that we don't know yet, when it comes to science and when we talk about the brain. But again, going back to can we become more aware of how we think, and what we talk about, how we feel about what we think. So going back to feelings, how I feel about what I think, and where is that feeling coming from? And when we're able to truly give the time to ourselves to be able to understand ourselves more, you're starting to see I can be really authentic just because I wasn't taught to be authentic. I can still attain the level of authenticity, be who I am, not being portrayed by other people just because I'm not doing anything that I truly make me feel joyful and happy, right? So if I care for a friend of mine and I said, look, it's fine. This is how you see the world. This is how you feel. And I respect that. I have a different view. And be okay to sound off and share your view. And that individual may not take it happily because that individual probably will perceive you as not caring, not sensitive enough, not empathetic enough, that you don't listen to me, you don't blah, blah, blah. You see that often people would take it very offensively and they'll become very defensive, right? And so just because that individual is reactive, I don't have to be reactive to this individual's reactiveness. You know what I'm saying? So to become authentic is to be able to understand that I know my value, I know my view, and it's okay that if my view is different from yours, it's not going to affect, I'm not going to change my view just because of your view. I'm not telling you to stay really hardcore stubborn and trying to fight, but to be able to honor at this very moment, this is my belief system, this is where I'm at, to honor and respect your own view, but without trying so hard and trying to bring your point across to others so that others can accept your view. Because when we starting to do that, do the tug of war, this is when we are starting to lose who we are. Because now the argument is going into to prove me right, rather than to honor who I am, what I am, and how I feel, and what I'm seeing. We lost sight. Immediately, we shifted our focus to, no, I'm trying to prove me right now. And that's where the argument is not going anywhere. And so, instead of letting other people or your internalized view of how other people view you, when you start to focusing on that area, then you are no longer authentic because you are putting your energy and your entire effort into a different domain, right? When you're able to fully embrace who you truly are, including things that people may not fully understand or accept, and you make peace with it. You're not trying to argue, and you're not even trying to prove that you're right or wrong. Because we are all learning at our own pace on our own evolutionary journey. It's a constant fluidity. We have to be able to understand, we have to be fluid in our own journey. So, because we want the certainty so badly, because certainty gives us security, the sense of security. Uncertainty somehow instill fears in us, right? It's very uncomfortable. So we're trying so hard to make something very certain, even trying to prove a point across to somebody. We are so, tenacious, to trying to get that person understand my view. If not, just I cannot let that one go because I know I'm right. Right? That instantaneously you really lost track of being authentic. So I don't know if this is like I'm really going on and on and on this. But again, to be authentic, it's nothing about trying to make people understand who you are, because I can guarantee you a lot of people would not understand what you're trying to say at times, because they are as all worked up into the mindset of trying to prove my point right across to you. So we have to break that pattern of thinking. I have to make sure you got my point. I learned to let that one go. I think I'm one of those people that I try so hard trying to prove people wrong and trying to prove me right because I need the validation, right? So that's where I got stuck on. I want people's validation, whether it's coming from my parents or other people, my peers, because without the validation, I'm nothing. This is something that most of us fall into the same trap, right? We cannot accept the fact that if I'm doing my best, not your expectation of my best. So imagine you're my employer, you're my boss, or you're my customer. I'm not going to meet at your level of expectation, right? And so my feedback from you will always be like, yeah, pretty good, but not quite there yet, right? I'm not trying to tell people like stop improving yourself, but that improvement should be coming from within you. Okay. And of course, some people will say, oh, well, there are certain standards in the industry, whatever industry you talk about, certain things that you have to be able to meet the standard. Otherwise, it's not safe. Otherwise, it's not going to be working. I get that part, but I'm just talking about on the personal level. Okay. I'm not trying to tell you like to build a car that is going to fall apart. If I'm going to sit in the car, the airbag's going to pop up out of nowhere. That can kill me. I understand that. So I'm not talking about things like that. There are certain things, yes, have to meet a certain standard to be able to roll out some of the products, to roll out a system that will make sure it's safe and sound, okay? The practicality and safety, I get that. But I'm just talking about on the personal level. If I'm going to be able to have a conversation for only 10 minutes, I don't have an entire hour for you. But I'm telling you, I love you, I care for you, but I only have 10 minutes today. Don't guilt trip me to say something hinting that I'm not giving you plenty of time, that you want me to give you an hour, but I'm giving you that little bit of time, and be upset over that, and then make up your own conclusion and thinking that I don't love or care for you enough. Does it make sense? We often do that to other people around us. We often project our expectation on how others should be behaving. And when they're not, we are upset. We are angry. And vice versa. We allow other people to do this to us. So until we're able to see what we've been doing and stop doing that and live our authentic way of, living, accept who I am, see that I can only do so much at this very moment, but doesn't mean that this is it. I may be able to give you more time, but not right now. And be okay with it without guilt without guilt tripping the other individual, the other party, or yourself. Once we're able to do that, you're starting to see that you are fully embracing who you are at this very moment. Each moment will change. And embrace that part as well, being fluid in life, not rigid. Flow like the river, right? Go with the flow. That's really what that means. The water moves from 1 second at this moment to the next second. It's already at different elevation, different movement, different velocity. I mean, really, things are constantly changing. Embrace that. When we're able to embrace that, then you're starting to see yourself living with authenticity. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.